of the big questions I get literally all the time is there a replacement, a different option, or an alternative to the MacBook Pro? This is my specific unit. So this is the M4 Max. I know that the M5 has just been announced, but weirdly enough, there is no Pro or Max models. It's just for the 14-inch, but I've used this for close to a year. I will say that this is probably the closest that I've come. So this is the new ASUS ProArt P16. This would, of course, compete against the 16-inch MacBook Pro, but ASUS has essentially developed this or built this computer with creators, with pro users in mind, hence the name Pro. Even stuff like the video card, those are really tuned towards more creative tasks like video editing. Even though this is rocking like the RTX 5090 as an example, which you would think is great for gaming, it can do that, but really meant for those hardcore users that are using it for content. So quickly to the specs, this is rocking the AMD Ryzen AI 9 HX370. It's got 64 gigs of RAM and 2 terabytes of space, and I mentioned this one has the RTX 5090. Obviously, depending on which spec you end up choosing, that price will kind of vary around, but this one specifically, it's around that 4,000 US, 6,000 Canadian mark. And once again, when you compare that to say my fully maxed out like MacBook Pro, I get some of the options like the storage are a bit off. There's definitely, some sort of value I get for most people that is like a shit ton, a lot of money. But when you are using this for say like work, if you're in content, if you need something to actually like make you money, I would say a creator tool or a pro tool are literally worth their weight in gold. So this will definitely get you by. So the screen on the other hand absolutely crushes the MacBook. So this is an OLED panel, like I mentioned, 16 inches, it's 4K, 120 hertz, fully touch screen. It is one of the brightest panels that we've actually tested out in most laptops. This gets up to 1600 nits of brightness. So when I've used it more than just like in the studio, when I've taken it out, obviously you can still carry it around for its like overall size and form factor, still compared to say like dedicated gaming laptops, which are super chunky, you can still get by carrying this from place to place. All that display tech is kind of known as ASUS's Lumina Pro OLED. It's a really color accurate panel. Like as an example, it's got 100% of the DCI-P3 color space. If you are doing anything that requires like good color matching, so say you're an editor, if you're doing any commercial work, if you're color grading, if you need to use this as some sort of reference, if you're say like a photographer, this is a really good and once again color accurate panel. They've also got these really cool tools built into the laptop. For example, this on the top left of the trackpad, this is called their dial pad. So to enable that, you just need to swipe down from the opposite side and you can see that little light that indicates that it's on. And from there, depending on what app you're using, so right now I'm just in the main screen, you can see that I can change things like volume. So I just need to hit that and then I can kind of dial that back and forth. When I'm in another app, say like Photoshop, I can change different brush strokes. When you're in Resolve, you can change that to a particular function that you like to use. When you're in Microsoft Edge, if you are that crazy person that uses that, you can set that to say like YouTube. You can actually just change it to your own really preference. And if you are say like a real colorist, you probably have your own dedicated little board. If you actually remember this, because I just had it kicking off the side of my studio, this was from, if any of you like you OGs know, from like the Microsoft Surface, you would actually place this on the computer and you can use that as a dial. So that is kind of built in to the actual laptop and you don't have to have some other separate piece of tech that you would normally have to plug in. And as a bit of a reference, try to compare, the footage, for example, this video that we shot. So I was editing in Resolve on this compared to say my MacBook, which I mentioned this has the latest like M4 Max, pretty much fully spec'd. The ProArt delivered almost 2.5 times faster 422 video encoding performance, which once again, compared to the MacBook, is pretty impressive. And if you happen to use any sort of software that relies on AI, Apple has like fully admitted they are the worst. Not the worst, but really behind in the AI space. This is obviously a Windows Copilot Plus PC. You can access Copilot with the simple launch button and it works decently well. As an example, it has 50 TOPS of NPU. That's more so for like the processing side, but if you're doing anything like visually graphics related, that's definitely where the NVIDIA RTX AI acceleration comes in. If you're doing anything with masks or generative edits, but as an example, as another creator tool. So I actually just picked this up. This is the new GoPro Max 2. I was actually just being like the ultimate person at the dog park, and when I was out with Link was just taking some footage just to kind of test this out. When I was importing footage on back to the laptop, I was able to get some really cool 360 degree footage, and on StoryCube, which is essentially a built-in content organizer, it's great for GoPro users, or once again, if you are into the content space, you can easily access and kind of view all that footage. And what's even cooler, ASUS and GoPro have partnered up, so if you grab a new ProArt, you actually get 6 months of subscription to GoPro's premium service, and 3 months if you get get a ZenBook / VivoBook. So if any of you are big GoPro users, this is actually my first time using the Max 2. Getting some of that footage has been really cool. Once again, my extent is just being a little bit of a dog dad. I don't nearly do as fun and creative or crazy things as some GoPro people do. But yeah, once again, you're just able to do all that video work easily on the ProArt. And kind of next off for battery. So this has a 90 watt hour battery inside. The charger is a 240 watt one. Expect like all day usage. Once again, really depending on what you're doing or how hard you're pushing it. And even under heavy video load, I didn't really notice the fans ramp up too much. Once again, very minimal thermal throttling. If anything, which I'll get to at the very end, when we were running some AAA titles, that's when I really heard it ramp up, which once again, this isn't meant for that. But once again, say compared to the MacBook, you can't run like most AAA titles. You can still get by. You can still game on this. Obviously not optimal, but once again, just another little bonus that I wouldn't say like ProArt specific, but a Windows computer can do versus anything on Mac OS. So last but not least, it's weird. I'm ending the video on kind of like the ports and kind of the design. I mentioned that it's beautifully crafted. It's in this nice matte black finish, 16-inch form factor, and on the side, you've got HDMI 2.1, a USB 4 slot, USB-A if you need that, obviously proprietary charging, and a headphone jack. And on the other side, you've got a full SD card slot, which is nice. That's where I dumped all the GoPro footage in, another Type A and USB 3.2. And like I said, it doesn't go over the top with branding. The only little logo you'll see is just on this bottom right corner here, and you'll see ASUS ProArt. The speakers on it are actually really good, and surprisingly enough, a trackpad that can match something of the MacBook, which usually is like obviously class leading. It is surprising how many Windows PCs or like laptops struggle with getting full-size trackpad that don't have any wiggle. Most of them just feel cheap, but this one is really nice. It's got some really good tactility. And like I said, it has that little dial pad if you want to use that little scroll wheel for any sort of extra function. We've got a backlit keyboard, chiclet style, and overall, pretty solid laptop. Like, it is hard to find a decent or a good MacBook Pro replacement. It's nice to see companies like ASUS actually build good creator Pro series laptops that actually work as advertised and perform really well. And once again, for cheaper of a price than a fully, say, like maxed out M4 Max MacBook Pro, or even the M5, which once again is weird because there's no Pro, there's no Max. I'm not too sure what Apple is doing with their naming. Let me know your thoughts down below, especially if you're a creator, if you've happened to use one of these before, if you've been really surprised and impressed with how it performs. Peace.